Today we finish the book of 2 Kings. Monday we'll begin 1 Chronicles. So we'll have a little bit to read on Monday with 2 days readings, of course, as we always do. Tomorrow morning we have worship with Holy Communion at Mabel at 9, which will be live on Facebook as normal. And at 10:30 at Our Savior's in McHenry, we have 3 students being confirmed tomorrow. So that'll be a big day for those 3 students and their families. And we have one youth having her first communion tomorrow morning at Our Savior's in McHenry. So Sundays are interesting and always a good time to get together with the people of the congregations. And so I hope you join us if you're able to in person, but if not, join us on Facebook at 9 o'clock again. Chapter 24 begins with in the days of King Nebuchadnezzar, whichever way you hear it, of Babylon came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant, the king. Jehoiakim of Judah became King Nebuchadnezzar's servant for 3 years, and then he rebelled, and that didn't go so well for him, of course. But he was put to death, and as the Jehoiachin then became king, and he reigned for 3 months, and then his life ended as well. And then King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon comes again to Jerusalem, besieges the city, and the king Nebuchadnezzar carries off the king of Judah and all the officials, his family, carries everybody off and takes them all prisoner. Takes the house, the treasures of the house of the Lord, the treasures of the king's house. He cuts the vessels, and he just basically ruins everything that was in the temple that had been made in the time of Solomon, and anything and everything had been made since that time. He carried, he marched most of the people out of Judah, most of the Israelites, other than he left some of the poorest people there, so that they would be able to continue to care for the vineyards and the land. And says that he took off all the officials, all the warriors, 10,000 captives, all the artisans, all of the smiths. No one remained except the poorest people of the land. Carried away Jehoiakim to Babylon, the king's mom, his wife, his officials, and everybody. And there's just, the numbers of all of these people that were taken. And the king of Babylon then made Mathaniah to be king in place of Jehoiachin. And he renamed him, though, Zedekiah. And this man was 21 when he began to reign, and of course, during his 11-year reign, he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. And for most of 1st and 2nd Kings, the kings of Judah were more faithful than not. But these last few kings definitely were not faithful to the Lord. And then this king also rebels against the king of Babylon. And King Nebuchadnezzar came with all of his army against Jerusalem and laid siege to it. And the city was besieged. And on the 9th day of the 4th month, the king and his officials tried to flee. And they were pursued and captured. And they were basically, most of them were put to death. The king his eyes were put out, and he was bound and taken off then to Babylon. And I guess I thought they were already gone to Babylon, but so much of it just doesn't match up time-wise to me in so many ways. But in the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, the captain of the bodyguard and all this, he burned the house of the Lord. The temple was burnt and destroyed. The temple of the house of the king was destroyed. Jerusalem was laid waste, and the diaspora, the dispersion of the Israelites, was completed then in these years, with the majority of the Israelites being led out of Judah as captives, leaving, just as it said, some of the very poorest people, the remnant. And God always talked about there would be a remnant. And it didn't matter who it was or anything that way, there would be a remnant. And, in so many ways, as we read these First and Second Kings, we haven't heard a lot about the prophets. I mean, we heard Isaiah mentioned here a couple of days ago, but he had been a prophet for at least the last 20 years of what Second Kings is. Jeremiah also was a very visible and vocal prophet in these last years. I mean, these two, Isaiah and Jeremiah, were prophets at kind of the same time. But we don't hear about them. But we've got Isaiah and Jeremiah, the books of the prophets, and those are two of the major prophets because of all that they did during these last years of Israel, the northern kingdom, and of Judah, the southern kingdom. These two were very active in prophesying and doing God's work. But of course, the people, the kings especially, I mean, the kings led the people. And when the leader does something, the people kind of do the same thing. We know how that works, But anyway, Jerusalem is captured, and so much destruction there that doesn't even look like the city that it had been. The priests were captured, and they were taken away as well. And when all of this was said and done, and we get to verse 22 of 2 Kings 25, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon appointed Gedaliah, who was a son or grandson of Shaphan, who had been a king earlier, or Shaphan, we'd heard that name before, but he's appointed as governor. Governor. Not a king, not anybody with a lot of official power, but a governor. And it's a reminder of, as the Israelites came to be in the promised land, there had been judges. I mean, God was their leader. God was with them. God was leading and guiding, and he had judges there instructing. And they cried, "We want a king. We want a king." And now they've gone from having a king to being governed by a governor. Not someone with authority or any of that anymore. But he was he was in charge. But these other, and it says, when all the forces, men heard that the king of Babylon had made Gedaliah governor, they came with their men, namely Ishmael, Johan, Seraph, and all of these, and Gedaliah, the governor, swore to them, "Do not be afraid because of the Chaldean officials. Live in the land, serve the king of Babylon, and it will be well with you." It will be well with you. What a hope, false information. Because then the next thing, but in the 7th month, Ishmael, son of the royal family, came with 10 men, and they struck down Gedaliah, this governor, so that he died, plus along with all the Judeans and the Chaldeans that were with him. And so all the people, high and low, set out and went to Egypt. So many more of the remaining Israelites that were there, of any importance, of any position, left from Judah and went to Egypt. So in the 37th year, it says, of the exile of King Joachim of Judah, in the 12th month, he was released from prison. So this King Jehoiakim, he was the first king that was taken to Babylon, put in prison. He is then released from prison and comes with a position above others in the house of the king. But he's still subject to the king of Babylon, even though he eats at the table and has a stipend given to him on a regular basis. And it says the very last thing, for his allowance, a regular allowance was given to him by the king, and a portion every day as long as he lived. But he was a prisoner. He was not a free person. He was not the king of Israel anymore, because Israel was no more. And I don't know, it's so hard, upsetting to me to see how these people sinned so greatly that God was just fed up with them, done with them. I can understand it as well, because I've been at that point as well. You work and you try and you do your best and you give your all, and there's no gratitude, there's no following, there's nothing. And I can see God just saying, I'm going to wash my hands of the people of Israel. But there is still a remnant, and there is still a promise. So on Monday, as I said, we will begin the books of Chronicles.